and welcome to Communicating Effectively through CET. My name is Christi McMillan, and today we will be discussing the tools available in CET that can help you communicate more effectively with personas like permitters, installers, and the trades. I am an interior designer and architectural technologist by trade. I spent the first 10 years of my career as an interior designer and architectural technologist in the commercial interiors industry, and the last 7.5 years developing my chops as a design technology program specialist, where I spend a great deal of my time developing specification tools in CET and determining drawing standards for the manufacturer that I work with. In this presentation, we will review the power of drawing sets, building relationships with those who can help us make our drawings more powerful, and then the good stuff, the tools in CET to make communication easier. Communication is really what our drawings are all about. Communicating to the client what their space will look like, with the manufacturers on what we want to order from them, with permitters and engineers what we want to build, and of course the installers, GCs, and the trades on what we need them to build. One of the biggest issues I see out in the field is a lack of communication through our drawings to all of those different personas, which lead to errors in spec and our problems on site constructing it. In my tenure working with this manufacturer, I've spent a lot of time reviewing drawings and processes to find flaws and develop ways to fix them. We have found that a large number of those errors and issues that we found occurred that were due because of insufficient drawing packages. One of those such cases came to me recently from one of our dealers that I work with. They approached me and asked if I could help them understand why their projects were always pricing much higher than their competition. After some research, we figured it out that it came down to the drawing packages the install team was receiving. The drawing packages were very similar to the ones that you see on my screen. On the surface, they looked pretty good, but they were missing some very important information. Can you tell what's missing? Well, there's a lack of dimensions, there's no labels, minimal elevations, renderings, and legends, and there's no details on the drawings. In short, it was taking the installers several days to decipher their drawings so that they could even get to the point where they could start installing the project. And on top of that, instead of working with their designer specifier to get what they need, they decided they would just start doubling and in some cases tripling their install costs for every single project of theirs. So the drawings that didn't provide a right level of information cost that dealership thousands of dollars and lost opportunities. Our drawings are very powerful tools when we use them right. So the best way to start avoiding these situations and errors is to start developing those working relationships with those personas that are going to be using your drawings. They're really the experts on what they need, and we should be letting them be the guides. Why should we develop these relationships? Well, in short, they're the ones using them. They're going to be working off of these drawings. Learning their needs and how to speak their language will go a long way. If you don't know how to speak their language, the best way to learn is to ask them. We develop relationships to improve our processes, but to also make business easier and mutually beneficial for all parties. When we make things easier for those we work with, they make things easier on us, and they're going to want to continue doing business with us. And I think we can all agree that ultimately we want to reduce errors and have as smooth as possible install. Having a good working relationship can change our communication game and really reduce those errors. On the screen, there's a list of personas that you should develop relationships with if you don't already. I mean, again, based on the products that you specify, some of these may not be applicable to you, but we all have installers. At some point, you're going to have to contact a trade. And of course, we always work with clients, project managers, permitters, facilities personas, authorities having jurisdictions, and manufacturers. Starting a relationship with these personas is you're going to want to start as early as you can. Right now is the best time. And start with people you already know. If you already have some of these contacts or work with people who have these contacts, they're the best place to go first. You've already got a rapport going with them. If you're not already joining project teams, team meetings, taking in those meetings, getting to know the people, and most importantly is follow up with some of those members after. Maybe there's some changes that need to be applied and you might not be sure about it, or it might be an application for electrical or maybe plumbing that you don't understand. Reach out, follow up with those members and ask them clarifying questions, ask them for help. They will thank you for it later. If you don't know anybody and you don't have any of these meetings to attend, start asking those coworkers and ask them to start introducing you or maybe including you in those things. And try making your own as well. Maybe none of you have these contacts. I can't tell you that there's been several times where I have picked up the phone and called an electrician to ask questions about, what was actually happening in this space and how was I actually going to connect into it. Industry events are another great ways to make a friend and make a friend in the industry that can also maybe help you understand things that you don't necessarily have the expertise in. You don't have to be an expertise at everything. You just need to know the people to ask the questions to. And of course, talking to your manufacturers, they've probably already asked a lot of these questions and will know some answers that can help you and guide you what the right thing to do is. If you're meeting with these people in person, and especially when you're getting to know them for the first time, never underestimate the power of bringing some goodies with you. Everybody loves getting a snack, and they will definitely appreciate it when you do. And when you do meet with them or you have these discussions, come prepared, come with questions, have examples of what you're looking for and what you're trying to understand, and focus the conversation on what their needs are. You're going to want to understand what they need. This conversation is to find out what their needs are and be open to their suggestions. They might be suggesting something that maybe you've never done or is outside of your norms. Be open to doing something different. Again, these are for communication with them, and we want to communicate in their language. So be open up to those suggestions. What kind of info should you be looking for when you're meeting with them? Asking things like, what are your preferences? What do they like to see? What are their drawing standards? One I always like to ask is what actually causes them the most issues. Maybe there's things that they don't see on drawings, but they would really like to. That's not part of their standards. Technical questions, of course, anything you don't understand or don't know how to do, and they're the expert, ask those questions. Process, especially if you're talking to installers and trades, understanding their process of how and when they will do something will help you figure out how you fit into it and how to reflect those things properly, or you might need to order some additional parts or provide additional information. Review your drawings with them, clarify things make sense, mark it up with them until you come to an agreed upon method, and follow up with them later with those markups and make sure they do still follow the standards you develop together. And then what do you do with this information? Well, first and foremost, apply it to your drawings. That's the main point of this. And share your knowledge with others. Knowledge is really meant to be shared, and it will only make your team more effective when you share what you've learned with them. Adding them to templates is a great way to also incorporate them into your drawing packages and can easily be shared with others. Documentation, what we learned, is also an excellent way to share your knowledge with others and reference back to when it's needed. All right, now let's get into the good stuff. Communicating through those drawings and really speaking that universal language. I'm going to show you some of the tools and things that we use to help communicate with these personas a little easier. Dimensioning. It's a crucial part of specification and communication of your design, and it's often the most overlooked aspects of a drawing package. These are used to verify what was specified works for the site, confirms conformance to the building codes, ADA, confirms spacing size for product specification, and provides installers and trades with vital information they need. When adding dimensions to a drawing, review each dimension type and verify A, if it's needed, and if so, B, make sure it's on your drawing and clearly readable. Dimensions should include, but are not limited to, site dimensions, locating on the floor plate where your product goes, Any specific dimensionings that impacts your product, like are you tying into a base building? Does it need to align to certain elements? All of those things should be dimensioned and confirmed where they are. Hold to dimensions. These are a big one. If you need your site to be built a certain way to work for your product, we need to make sure that these are clearly indicated on our drawing. I like to make mine a different color, a different size of font, something to make them stand out for you. And of course, always make sure those hold to dimensions get signed off on. Product dimensions. These are anything from what the component size is, how big is my desk, how tall are my walls, making sure that we communicate the sizes that are specified, especially if those were something my client specifically asked for, or if I need to make sure they're a certain size to work with other products. Overall dimensions are another one. This is great for understanding how much space is needed for your product. Put that into the space and communicate it. Clearance dimensions, communicating space between components, how much space is there to move around it or get through is just as important as the product spacing itself. And things like device locations. Are you installing do you need an electrical box in a specific location to service your product, or vice versa? Communicating those things on your drawings can be very important. And installation dimensions, product location dimensions. These are used by your installers to understand where the product goes on the floor plate. Center lines and install points. Sometimes your product has very specific points, especially if it's fastening to a floor, a wall, or a ceiling. We need to indicate those points for those installers. Put those dimensions on your drawings. Base building to edge of product is another way of indicating product location. And cut locations. If you have a custom application, maybe you're cutting a hole for a box, maybe you're cutting down a rail, anything that also has to be altered on site by an install team or a trade should be communicated those specific instructions and dimensions on your site. And again, other device and accessory locations. Do you have a shelf going? Do you have an AV monitor? Locate where you want those on your drawings, or on your drawings where you want them mounted, so the installers can get them precisely where you want them. All right, and I'm going to flip over to CET, and let's take a look at some of those dimensioning tools. So your two main ones are up at the top of your screen, the 3-click dimension, as well as the chain dimension. I am a big fan of the chain dimension because it allows me to do things like this, where I can continue to dimension all across my drawing without exiting the tool and restarting. So it really gives me those standard dimension that I would typically use in AutoCAD or any of my other architectural drawing sets. And it can have text added to it. You can change everything with it. It makes dimensioning so much quicker. The 3-click dimension is also very useful, especially if you don't need a chain dimension. Maybe you just have some one-off dimension locations on your drawing that you want to use. We talked a little bit about making your dimensions readable. So I've also indicated what each one of my dimensions are. So for example, an overall dimension, I have clearance dimensions. I even have different types of views to indicate different sets of dimensions. So I've got site dimensions, I've got clearance sites dimensions. I've separated my dimensions onto different views to make my drawing a little easier to read, which we'll get into more in a second here. There is also angle dimensioning tools and radius dimensioning tools, as well as the 3-click, 2-click, and additional options to your chain dimensioning in here as well. This is within your tools tab under the dimension section. You get additional dimension options. These two are the ones you're probably going to use the most. Oops. And while we're dimensioning, we want to talk about essential versus excessive. There is a such thing as too many dimensions. So we've talked a lot about various different types of dimensions. You can go overboard and have too many. So make sure that you are including what is necessary. And again, if you don't know what's necessary, talk to that group network of experts that you've made a relationship with and find out what dimensions they need. Setting up dimension styles will help make this process easier and go faster. It can be shared so that all of you within your office are using the same styles and your drawings look very much the same across the board, and it doesn't matter who's working on it. Categorization of views. We showed how I have different views for different levels of information. Utilizing categorizations and views will help you distinguish and separate that information. If there's too much information on the layout, it can be challenging to read, and that's when you can split it up into a new view or a category and make it easier to read. So if I switch back to CET, there we go. As I go through my views, you can see if I zoom in, I have some various different levels of dimensioning. I have some on a furniture layer on view that is specific to the furniture product within my plan. I have another view that includes dimensions that are specific to my architectural product. I have some that are specific to my installation plans. In fact, I usually have more than one that have dimensions to call out to various different installers and even different trades. I start providing different levels of information. To also help make this go a little easier for me, I've also done things like set up dimension styles. So in your tools tab, you have text, line, dimension styles, dimension text, dimension lines, areas, all kinds of different styles in here that you can set up within this menu so that when you click on a dimension, you can go to your dimension style. So there's text style, dimension style. I can come in here and say, I want this to be my hold to style. I have another one for site dimensions, and I have another one for please confirm, something that I need confirmed on the site. I've made it much bigger text. I've made it red. And then this way, all I have to do is select the dimensions I want to be that style and pick out my style. I can also set my default. So before I even start drawing my dimensions, if I go in here and select out, let's pick out please confirm. As I start drawing, it is already within that dimension style. Making dimensions, especially ones that you need confirmed and or signed off on, different colors, different texts, make them bold, will make it easier to read, especially if you're looking to get something confirmed or that you really need to stick to this. It'll make it stand out and easier to find when you're looking at the drawings. Categorization and views is these different views down at the bottom of my window that I can control. There are several different recommended views that I would suggest to you. Here is an example of my bar. Some of these are default view settings that are specific to my manufacturer extensions. Others on the screen are defaults that I created for myself or custom views. I've created some that work with the types of products that I usually specify. Views that you are probably going to want to, if you don't have them already set up for you through a manufacturer, is you're going to want to set up your own product views. You may need more than one product view, especially for drawings where you have multiple different types of products. You may need more than one view. They should include things like product labels, site dimensions, hold tos, clearance sides, clearance dimensions, any of that information should be contained within one of those product views. You may also have trade-specific views where you show things like an electrical device, locations, symbols, routing symbols, notes that are specific to that trade. You're also going to want product installation views. Again, you might require more than one view depending on what type of a product and what's in your plan. So I include things like product location information, center line or install points. These are information, the specific points that my installers need to lay out the project. Base building to edge of product, again, helping them locate it on there, and of course any cut locations of notes. And as always, if it looks messy or has a lot going on in it, don't be afraid to split it out into more than one view. And if you're not sure how to split it out or which information should be there, ask those experts. So again, I have a bunch of views down here at the bottom that I showed you already. If you want to create your own, you can click on these three dots here. And I have several different views set up, so you can have more than one. So depending on if you're working on different types of products, you can make all kinds of different ones for yourself. I'm going to go back to my CET conference. And if you want to add more views, just click on the one you want to add the view to, and then go edit. And that will bring up this window. It should look pretty familiar because this is the same window you would see when you pick out your visibilities. Your views at the bottom and your visibilities in Paperspace are connected. So if you create a custom view, it's really nice because that will automatically transfer over to a visibility option in your Paperspace and make laying out your Paperspace much easier. So to create that custom view, you're going to go down here and look for where it says custom view modes. You can see I have a ton here that I have set up for myself. To add a new one, you're going to click on this plus signs and you're going to create a name for it. Then what you're going to do is pick out all of the different categories of things. You're going to have to expand these, and you may have to expand a second time. Most product has 3 levels of visibility. It typically has a symbol, a part number, and a generic install text. How those are assigned are going to be specific to the manufacturers you are working with. If you're not sure how they are assigned, I usually just start clicking if I don't know and see what comes up and see what doesn't. If you're really struggling with it, reach out to your manufacturer and ask them what they are assigned to. But usually they're pretty good at guessing at, what you want to see, what you don't want to see. Once you have it how you like it, hit save down here at the bottom. And that will now show up in your list. And you can click, you can see it's here. And it's also already down here in my views to click from. So then I just have to close this window. And now I have that view added down here. And if you switch over to your Paperspace, and let's click on a viewport, I'm going to go to my visibility settings. And there's my CETX visibility that we just created. So they're all connected. It makes things a lot easier. Labels, notes, and tags. Labels are another vital component to any drawing package, especially to an installer who uses these to identify product and where it goes. If your product comes in with a label, it is there for a reason and should be shown on your plans. If these are not clearly visible on your install plans, you will have a very happy and unhappy install team. Always review your drawing labels to make sure they are there and not overlapped by anything else, just like on the dimensions. If the labels and other information in the view are becoming too messy or just too crowded and hard to read, use those additional views. Notes, they're not always needed, but can be helpful in custom applications where additional information may need to be provided. So when a custom application is being done, Notes may also be added to elevations or details too. They don't just have to be on a plan. And tags, depending on how you utilize your tags, you may want to also communicate that information. For example, if your tags reflect phases in which the product will arrive on site, or if your tags reflect how the product will be packaged and delivered, this information is very helpful to anyone who will be receiving it and unpacking it for staging. So let's go back over to CET and talk a little bit about tagging. In my drawing here, in my part tagging dialog box, I have done two things. I've used my tag 1 to identify my project, and I've used tag 2. I have 4 different ones to identify what's my furniture, what's my architectural products, and are they in the open office area or are they in a private office location? I've named them out as this, as well as I've added a description to my tags to communicate what that is in the tag, and I'm going to communicate when it's going to be arriving in the install sequence. Then, when I go over to my pay-per-view, and I have put in here because I'm going to provide this information to my install team that's going to be receiving this so they understand the sequence and where things are going to go. I'm going to utilize an add-on. So if you go into your pay-per-view, the tools, underneath drawing view, there are all these little add-ons right here that do various different things. The one I'm going to use is this one right here called Show Part Tag Colors. Now I'm just going to remove it from mine because it's already added. So when you use this, you're going to click the tool and then just click on the viewport once. It will automatically adjust your tags. And when you click on it, here we go. If it doesn't come up right away, there's a little symbol down here in the corner. You can see it, it's right here. I clicked on that and it gave me this property box specifically for the add-ons. I'm going to configure the view pick, and then under category, I can select the tag that I want. I want my tag 2 because it's showing those different phases. I can even filter out the tag by specific tag 2s if I want to, but I'm going to leave it. Then what it's done is it's shown all my product in my drawing, the color that I assigned it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this little legend in here. So if I scroll down in the same Paper Space Tools tab, go down under Tools, there's this button here called Tag Legends. If I insert this, I can pick that same tag category. I picked tag 2, so I want to use tag 2 here. And then I just have to place it on my paper, hit escape, and it's going to show me the color, the name that I gave the tag, and the description that I put in the part taking dialog box. This, again, I can stretch it. I can use different options up here. Maybe I don't want the descriptions. Maybe I don't want the name. So you can customize this to make the view what you want. You can even play around with the different title styles and pay-per-views in here to customize this. But really what we're looking for is a way to further communicate. If I have assigned different phases or different install sequences, and I've taken the time to do that with my tags, I also want to communicate back to the installers that information. So this is a great way to put that on your plans. Elevations, these should always be on your drawings too. Again, these are industry standard tools used for communicating vertical information that cannot be seen in plan view or accurately communicated through a rendering. On your elevations, you want to make sure to include product dimension heights, dimensions for communicating any code requirements or ADA, locating devices. Descriptions can also be added where required. These are a great way to call out things that might be hard to tell what they are, or maybe communicate something more clear to a client. They could also be utilized to add finish callouts. So if you're trying to call out specific finish locations, this is a great way to do that as well. Elevations also have abilities to show more than one view. So you, just like our plans, we can do the same thing with our elevations. If we need to clearly communicate multiple views of the same elevation, our elevation tools have that functionality. Switch back over to CET. So when you place an elevation, you do have the ability to go in and click on them and show different views. So my elevation here, I'm just going to make this a little bigger. I have switched this to show my electrical view. And then what I have done is I've drawn on here with my draw tools. I use the arrows in here to draw. I'm going to route this electrical through my panels and up my post. So I have physically drawn on here that, and I've adjusted my view to show my electrical view. So I'm actually seeing the inside of my wall and not the outside, which I would typically show. You can do this by selecting your elevation, and up here at the top, we have this visibility. So you can come here, and all I did was I selected those view modes. So I have a view mode set up in electrical, called electrical, that just shows me that inside framing and my device routing. So I just had to click on it, and it'll update my elevation to show that rendering. And now I can add in different routing, I can add notes, and really customize this to the persona that's going to need it the most. You can also do various levels. So I can show it with my furniture in front, and I can show it without it. So I could have essentially end up with maybe 3 levels of elevation showing very much the same view, but very different information. Details in sections. Any provided details in sections should always be added to your drawings. They are an industry standard used for communicating finer construction details, especially if you are connecting into a base building. These typically need to be on a drawing, as they are going to need to be reviewed by an engineer of record or an authority having jurisdiction to approve the detail or work for the site. And if installers need to instruct it, these are their guides on those specific conditions they are assembling. Architectural drawing sets, these always need to be included on a drawing. No exceptions. They have to be there. If it's a furniture drawing set, it's going to be really dependent on what you're being constructed. So on my drawing here, I've actually gone in and created my product details, and I've included dimensions on them as well to show that information. I've also added sections to show how I am actually going to connect into my base building, both at the ceiling and the floor. And I actually have a couple of different products in here that do it a bit different way. So I've included both of those details. And I've even started adding images for how I'm going to connect some bracketry to my panels. You might not always have a CAD detail per se, but images can also be details. It could be images of hardware, images of brackets, taking things from spec guides and design guides, price books, can also be very helpful in including them on your drawings to further communicate what it is you're doing. These can all be inserted by using, if they're CAD, you can go to your import export and import AutoCAD files. You can also bring in images by using these image tools up here. So I can bring in images like this one and double clicking on it and locating out those images that you want to see. So you can include all kinds of things. Details don't necessarily have to be restricted to AutoCAD details. They can come in many different forms. Legends, when applicable, these should also be added to your drawings. These are an industry standard method of communicating information. These could be anything from finishes that are specified to wiring diagrams for electricians. If you have them available to you, add them. They've been added to the extensions and given to you for a good reason. These are also a great way for checking your projects and highlighting information. If you don't have these available but would find them helpful, you can create your own too. There are Excel sheets that are a great tool for quickly creating your own really simple, really quick legends, and they are importable directly into CET. Under your Tools tab, there is this button right here called Load Spreadsheets. If you click on this, it'll place a square into your drawing file. I'm just going to switch to my normal view here. And then double click to insert the sheet. Once you've created a legend in Excel, save it somewhere, put it in your project folder, and then make sure to close it first before you go to click on the file. If you don't close it first, nothing will happen when you do this. So make sure you've created it, saved it, closed it, then go to load it into your drawing. Now when I hit open, it'll load that legend that I created. It will only load fields that are populated with something. Anything else around it in the Excel sheet will not come in. So it already does start doing some formatting. If you want to edit this, I find the best way is to actually, instead of going edit data, is to actually go directly back into your Excel sheet, update it in there, save it, close it, come back in here and hit refresh data, and it'll update your legend for you. But again, excellent way to get legends in there if you don't necessarily have one available to you, or maybe you want to make one of your own to communicate more specific information. Renderings. These are very quickly coming industry standard to provide in a drawing package. These are great for showing what the finished product is going to look like, but these can also be used to show those different views again. So the ones that we created at the bottom of our drawing, those can also be transferred to your renderings and show again different levels of information in another way that could be helpful to an installer or a tradesperson. So here's an example of one that I created. This is a rendering of a wall with electrical routing through it. I have 3 different types of devices. I've got data, electrical, and switches. So I really wanted to show the color and all of this in there, and I didn't want to have to draw it myself. So I used my view modes in the photo lab. So I open it up and make sure you go into your advanced settings, scroll down until you see view mode. And then in this drop down here, you're going to have all those lists of view modes that are there. Make sure when you're opening this up that you're in the extension that shows all of those and that you've picked out all your custom settings. Then they will show here. The other thing I did is I utilized the ghost rendering tool. And I actually ghosted out everything that was behind this wall in this view so that I could get a really clear view of the framing components and my electrical devices and their nice colors showing through. Just another way of presenting information. Reusable files, once you've already got all this stuff figured out and set in your drawings, you can save them and reuse them, and I highly recommend doing this. It's a great way to not have to repeat those steps over and over and over again, and it can be saved and shared with everybody you work with so that you are all using the same standards, and you're saving everybody else some time. And again, I would save all of these on my screen are reusable files that can be saved into those templates, and then everybody can be working off the same template and using all of these. Make your drawings all look the same and communicate the same level of information. So that is it for me today. If there's nothing else you remember from this presentation, I do want you to remember that communicating in person and through your drawings will greatly reduce the amount of errors and complications you would have on a project. Work with your drawing viewers to determine their needs and how best to communicate with them. Always make sure you're speaking the same language they are. Make sure that you have included all the pertinent information for everybody, and you will need multiple views to do it properly to clearly communicate. And finally, use those reusable files and templates. They're going to speed up your process and make things so much easier for everybody. Thank you. My name is Christi McMillan. Again, on the screen is my contact information. If you want to contact me and talk shop, I am always available. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.